Hello, and welcome to this lesson, which will introduce you to segmenting the market. After you have finished this lesson, you will be able to, firstly, know how to utilize the main approaches for market segmentation, and secondly, understand how to identify the strategic segments in a market. During the first lesson, you learnt to define and then size the market. In this lesson, you will focus on the rationale for segmenting the market and how this differs for consumers and businesses. You will end the lesson by identifying strategic segments which are attractive to serve, have positive economics to serve, and utilize the key success factors of the organization. Let's begin with an overview of basic segmentation. Segmentation can be defined as the process of dividing a market into subsections to enable an organization to better target its products to the relevant customers. The segment should behave similarly with regard to brand loyalty, price sensitivity, and marketing distribution channels. Good segmentation should help to explain the organization's competitive positioning and who it is serving. It should help to quantify and prioritize the customers worth targeting, and allow organizations to develop a marketing action plan for each targeted segment. Done well, this should increase an organization's return on investment on everything from innovation and product development to customer service. When formulating your approach to market segmentation, you should adapt your approach depending on whether you are targeting consumers or businesses. The slide shows the main approaches to consumer market segmentation. You will review business market segmentation later in the lesson. The criteria chosen will often depend on the marketer's overall objectives and product and service offerings. For example, a market can be segmented based on demographics, or by consumer behaviors, such as the frequency of purchase, or whether you are targeting loyal users or brand switchers. You can also segment based on attitudes, such as targeting value-conscious consumers. Segmentation is a creative process, so take time to think broadly and creatively about the different segment approaches. Then, think more narrowly and creatively about defining and carving out specific segments relevant to your product or service. The slide shows the pros and cons of each segment approach, together with the sources of such data and insights. Data for the descriptive approach can be sourced from demographic data, such as census data, and hence is relatively easy and readily available. However, the data may not fit the specific product or service category you wish to segment for. By contrast, data for the behavioral approach can be sourced from customer panels or by observations and has the benefit of being sourced from real-world consumer behavior. However, the data does focus on what consumers are doing rather than why they are behaving as they do, although this can be overcome with deeper questioning in consumer focus groups. Data for the third, attitudinal approach can be sourced from focus groups, customer surveys, or via conjoint research. It has the benefit of identifying core needs, and it can allow organizations to see emerging consumer trends. However, the data can sometimes be speculative or hypothetical, rather than identifying true needs and wants. When choosing your segmentation approach, the criteria chosen will often depend on the marketeer's product and service offering. If your product category is clearly defined, then the criteria would normally be description or behavior-based. But if your product category is complex and poorly defined, then you would normally rely on consumer attitudes to help you segment the market. To achieve the most powerful segmentation insights, you often need to conduct primary research, such as surveys or focus groups. Personal observations are a useful way of seeing at first hand how consumers are using a product, or how consumers are deciding between purchases. New data enables new analysis, which leads to new insights, which may also help to support the commissioning of larger research projects. The slide shows an example of some consumer segmentation profiles. Note how each segment reflects attitudinal, behavioral, and demographic characteristics, although this is not always necessary. And this slide shows an example of consumer segmentation in the beer industry, together with the implications and proposed action plan for the marketing team. To end this section of the lesson, let's review the main approaches to business market segmentation. The criteria chosen here differs to that of consumers, but still depends on the marketeer's overall objectives and product and service offerings. For example, a business market can be segmented based on industry type or by business size, or it can be segmented by specific business application, which is anything important to the running of the business, such as IT systems or specialized tools. Here is a recap of the demand analysis stages, which you are following throughout the course. Now let's turn your attention to strategic segmentation. Once the work on market segmentation is complete, you need to turn your attention to identifying the segments with the greatest potential for business success. In other words, you need to identify the strategic segments. To do this, for each segment, you need to assess how attractive it is to serve. For example, from a revenue or growth rate perspective. Then you need to assess the economics of serving that segment, such as the costs of reaching that segment through advertising. Lastly, you need to ascertain what the key needs and purchase criteria are for the segment's consumers, and determine whether your organization could meet those needs. The slide shows an example of how you can conduct such analysis in the beer industry. The charts are assessing the value generated by different segments of consumers, with the key insight being that over half of the industry's profitability is generated by males up to the age of 44, who drink at least 12 cans of beer per week. Such consumers would likely be targeted with a tailored marketing and sales program. And this slide shows how you can represent segment attractiveness, economics to serve, and key success factors, all in one slide. Your insight should be backed up with both qualitative and quantitative reasoning to justify a segment's placing on the chart. In summary, you have understood the different approaches to consumer and business market segmentation, and how important it is to find and prioritize the most attractive customer segments. When segmenting the market, try to avoid relying on only one or two dimensions to segment the market, and neglecting to take strategic considerations into account. Thank you for participating, and see you next time on another exciting business training lesson from Pontema.